Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. As usual, I like to take this as my personal opportunity to welcome our guests because I know personally that they're coming with a couple of things very expensive to me. Time. 24 hours is given to every man, every woman. How we respect time will tell me a lot about who you are. The other is the journey. The journey has some powerful stuff that created us, and it has created and who she is today. And so we want to welcome her, that she's coming to share both of these priceless commodities. And we are honored that she's here to exchange wisdom, her energy, her knowledge, so that you and I can become better human spirits while we occupy this beautiful thing we call the rock. Thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Thank you for having me, Ken. I appreciate it.
It is my honor. Tell the folks, how do you serve mankind?
How do I serve? Well, I serve in a couple of different ways. I am a love and sex coach is my first way. And I'm actually, for 26 years, a licensed massage therapist. So that's how I got into coaching, was through massage therapy. I had a clientele that loved to talk. So I don't get the quiet clientele. I have a talking clientele. So I started coaching on the table with them.
Yeah.
And that's how my coaching experience began. So I do it on the physical, emotional, and spiritual level coaching.
Yeah, that's beautiful. They have a couple of skill sets that are out there that are natural coaches, if you will. A massage therapist, the bartender, and your hairdresser.
Dresser.
Yeah, right there.
So true.
That crew right there can be some of the most powerful coaches on this planet because they are trained all day long to become listeners, and they are filled with wisdom. So welcome to Threads. One of the customs that we do here is to go back into a time machine, if you will. We start with the young individual because I tell people that is the first space where we have a chance to spend some time. Several years there with the family unit. We have mom and dad from whatever trauma they both had. They are now going to deposit data into you and I. And that space there helps create us, if you will. Welcome us to your family. What was that like to be a young one in your family?
It was a little chaotic. I come from a family of, there are five of us, five children, five girls. I have four sisters. My mom and dad, my dad is passed on, but my father was a Korean War vet and he came home with PTSD.
Um,
So he carried that on throughout his lifetime. And he was, an alcoholic. And my mom, she was, codependent. And then she started, drinking later.
yeah.
So it was a chaotic household. It could be violent, abusive. But it could be, and it was weird because then it could be fun and kind. It was very diversified, the household.
Yeah, that's always the case because it's not 24 hours a day where it's torture. In some cases, there's always glimmers of happiness and joy and so forth because that's how we are built. Now, this young girl, she's in this mix of your siblings, the energy of alcohol, and the the ups and down with those type of energy and emotions and mindset. How was this young girl and beginning to be formed, if you will, within that mix?
She became the people pleaser. She became the good girl because I had three older
Yeah,
sisters and one younger. So I became the one. I could see it. I
yeah,
was very intuitive as a child. I didn't know what that
yeah.
was. But I was like, let me stay out of the way. So let me just be the good one, stay out of the way, do what was right. And my parents were self employed, and I became their bookkeeper.
Hmm.
So when I was 14, my mother had me itemizing. I didn't know what I was doing. She
Yeah.
just, she had me do. So I would serve. I served that way, was to, be in the business.
Yeah.
But that's where I got my love of being self-employed,
It's a great
of
gift.
having my own.
It's
Yes.
a,
I learned the ups and the downs
yeah.
because they were in construction.
Yeah.
So it was hard. It was hard at times. It was up and down because that's what construction
Yeah.
is. And there was hardship. My father had cut off his fingers in one of the tractors.
Oh,
So I remember as a young girl, he was an amputee with his broken thumb, all his fingers cut off on one hand, but it didn't stop him.
yeah.
He just persevered. I remember he couldn't button his buttons on his shirt, and we did as children. We would button his and tie his shoe
Yeah.
until he could learn, which he did learn. But in the beginning, it was so natural to
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
You just tie his shoe, you button his buttons. What he needed help before he learned all of that on his own.
Some powerful
Again,
lessons to learn as a young individual. There's always, and I tell people, there's always beauty within the darkness.
yes.
And it is how you look into that darkness will determine how long you stay within that darkness. And looking into that darkness means that your perception of it, and once you are able to change and the perspective of it, you will come out a lot faster. So here's this girl learning a couple of really powerful things: the entrepreneurial spirit, that tenacity to keep pushing on, the fact that she is now beginning to learn how to serve, even to her dad, where she is um, looking not for praise, but just giving. She is now
Mm-hmm.
starting to experience these things as she's moving through life. And this young girl that has been exposed to entrepreneurship, how did she look at college? Did she look at it as a place to go, or did she get in another direction? What did she do having that information at 14 years old?
I had very old fashioned parents. So their message was we had to graduate high school and
Mhm.
then we had to find a husband. You were not allowed to leave the house. College was out,
Yeah,
really, high school was the goal.
yeah.
And we weren't allowed to leave the house as single women unless we were married. Like
Wow.
you couldn't get your own apartment. You couldn't, it just wasn't happening. At least that's the message I received.
Yeah.
I don't know what my other siblings got. So then what happened is like you want to leave the household.
Mhm.
So you now are in search for a husband.
Wow.
That was the trajectory, is get the husband, have the children, have the house, the picket fence, all of that. And that's what I did at 21. I was married.
Wow. That is, I've done several of these interviews, and that's the first time I heard we're a family. That was the ticket out to leave to leave the house. You're not leaving here unless you grab a man. So you grabbed your man, if you will.
Yeah.
And you're moving through life. You're now independent from the family. Your space that
Kind of.
kind
Kind
of,
of, because you're still in that alcoholic mindset.
yes.
You really are. I'm branching out.
Hmm.
Like I knew there was something odd happening in my family,
Yeah.
but I was still like, okay, I'm still connected, but still out. I'm still reaching out.
Yes, you're reaching out as you state. And as you reached out and you're now in your home with your man, what was happening to Anne, that woman that is there, this entrepreneur that was exposed to that? And the servant young girl is also exposed to that. What was happening to her with your man in your house?
Very interesting what was happening. I'll tell you the end
Yeah.
before I get to there. I am actually a widow. My husband, we were both married at 21. By 29, my husband had passed on.
Wow.
But in between was confusion. I had no idea who I was.
Yeah.
I had no idea how to manage this marriage, how to manage being in a relationship. It was the second person man I'd ever been with. All I saw as my model for a relationship was confusion, combative, very little affection. So I was seeking similar.
Yeah.
I didn't know that's what my model was.
Yes.
But I did know the first time my husband got angry at me and threw something along, not at me, well, it was probably at me, but alongside me, I had left the household and I came back and I said to him, I told you I lived my childhood like this. I will not live my adulthood like this. And that was the last that ever happened.
Yeah, I tell people life and is a series of decisions just like that. But the
Yeah.
decision usually is not a head logical decision. It's deeper than that. It is a core decision. When you say it, you know that it is more so of a being. Your entire being
Mm-hmm.
agrees with what you're saying, and the
And he knew it.
individual in front of you is
he
going to
he
know.
he knew it. He
Exactly.
really he
Yeah.
heard it. He knew it. He got very scared,
Yeah.
and he apologized. And then we became the fun couple.
Yeah.
Then we were like off to the races.
Yeah.
You know, my husband and I, we both drank we both were big drinkers. It became a party.
Yeah.
My relationship was a party now.
Yeah, and so I think because we're familiar with that type of energy that we came out of, we usually go to it because we gravitate to it because it's something we're familiar with, and
Familiar. We know no different.
there's a certain comfort, even though there's chaos. There's certain comfort there that we are comforted by until we get to that space, like you said, and you made that decision, an internal decision that is expressed, that individual in front of you will know that this came from a different place. So here you guys, the fun couple, you're partying, drinking, having all this fun, and you now, because I know you were exposed to some stuff as a young child, and there's always this restlessness, and sometimes it takes years to manifest, but this restlessness just sits there. And when we go to sleep or when we are quieted, it will begin to try to raise its head, and then we will shut it down.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me as to what was happening to you and as you're partying and moving through your life.
Well, that's exactly what was happening for me. It was like there's got to be more here. I kept getting. I was very unsettled. Even my sex life was terrible with my husband. I kept saying, "There's more. Isn't there more here? Isn't there?" I said to him, there's something missing." And he was like, "No, it's good," you know. I'm like, "No, there's just something wrong." I just knew something was so off in my life. And the other factor here was my husband could not keep a job.
Yeah.
I was the sole breadwinner. This is before I became an entrepreneur. You know, I had really good careers, but I was always so restless. Like I'm a good employee. Now I'm a bad employee, but I was always so good at the job. But I'm like, what is missing here? That I was so unfulfilled. So I was just really unfulfilled all the way around. And then there was a tragic accident and my husband died. And then that's when life really got like, wow, one day you're married and you're going in this direction. The next day you're not.
Yeah.
And your whole life I'm young, I'm 29. I'm like, what's happening for me? Where do I go next? And I remember sitting on the floor of my living room And it was a moment of despair. It's not suicidal, but it was really deep despair. And I said, God, is this all there is for me? Is this it?
Yeah.
And when I asked that question, it was like things started to open up. New people came into my life, experiences, life really got fun,
Yeah.
and it got challenging, and it I was able to discover, and I always say through my husband's death, he gave me the gift of me,
Yeah.
because
Precious.
I took that time and went out and explored myself.
That's precious. To recognize it as such again, and I want to point it out to people. Uh, Life is a series of decisions, but the decisions are made from the internal you, and there's a listener. Your husband wasn't there, but there was a listener there,
Mm-hmm.
and the listener heard what you said, and just like your husband responded, that invisible
Yes.
listener responded and began to bring into your space newness of life. So here you are, you
Mm-hmm.
have this gift. I know you didn't recognize it then, but you are given an opportunity to get to know you. You're on the floor, you made this declaration, and what did you do? How did you begin to stand up to become?
I actually had a friend come into my life. It was an older gentleman. We met through work, and he was my mentor.
Mhm.
He was my guide. We would talk on the phone for hours. We never met for like 4 years, but he would spend time with me. And I'd say, well, I really would like to try this. And he said to me, well, why don't you go try it? And
Yeah.
I said to him, well, I'm really scared. He says, okay, so why don't you go try it? I'll be here waiting for you. You come back and you'll tell me. I'm like, great. And that's how every door got open for me. I want to try this. Okay, but I'm scared.
Yeah.
We would do the same thing over and over. And I would just keep going out and trying new things. And that was my first coach. He was my mentor.
Yeah.
I look back and I'm like, oh my God, been coached my whole life.
So here you are, you have your first coach, and you are going out and try it, if you will. Um, what started to happen to you, the young woman that was going out and tried, as you said, internally? What did you start to notice?
I became very hungry. I was hungry for information. I was hungry for change. I was hungry for different. The spiritual world opened up for me. I started meditating. I had actually my in laws at the time had gone to a psychic, and they're like, go see this woman.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I'm so scared. I don't want any of that. No, no, go see her. Would you not believe this woman ended up being my aunt's cousin? And we didn't put it together till after the reading.
Yeah.
But she was so lovely. And, believe what you want about psychics. But she told me things that nobody knew,
Yeah.
only between my husband and myself. And I walked away with such relief, like, okay, he's doing good. Because I had a lot of guilt,
Yeah.
how my husband's death went down. I had a lot of guilt about it. And I'm like, okay, I'm relieved. It's okay. I can, it's okay for me to go out and have a life.
Yeah. And as you went out and you released. That's a great. Um, when we carry those type of burdens, especially guilt, guilt can be
Mm,
a hard taskmaster, if you will, that can, and it's very relentless. It will not give you a chance to rest. When you are busy, it's there. When you are not busy, it's there. So you had an
mm-hmm.
opportunity to part ways, if you will. and you
Yes.
have parted ways with guilt, and you're now looking at your life. And wow, that must have been a good view as you're looking ahead. Guilt is gone. How did you begin to celebrate that as you're moving through life now?
I went to massage school. I loved body work. I loved receiving reflexology, body work. We weren't a very big touchy feely family at all. And I
Mm-hmm.
had a friend say to me, she said to me, a friend at the time, why don't you go to massage school? And I said to her, what happens if I don't like it? She says, well, then it's, you don't like it, but you've tried. I'm like, okay. Off I went. My parents at the time had a winter home in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
I up and sold everything in New York. I took my cat, went to Florida, and went to massage school.
What part of Florida did you go to for your massage school?
Tampa.
Tampa. Familiar with it. I was
Tampa.
in Orlando,
Yep.
lived there for a couple of
Mm-hmm.
years. So here you are, you made that jump. And I like it because we call that jump the walk of faith. Now you're about to explore. You're like looking at it. I'm free. Let me see where this takes me. As you now began, you landed in Florida. You are looking for the school. You found your school and you're in class. How did you feel, Anne, as you're standing there in class, drinking all this information and data about the human body? How did you start feeling?
I was amazed. I was 35, and there
Mm.
were a lot of older students at the time. You know, there were young ones, but
Yeah.
there were people my age too, and older. So it was a grand mix of people. And I'm like, because, you know, I was not good in science in school. Um, but I'm like, okay, but because I'm older
Yeah.
and I really wanted to do this, I did very well. I could focus. I did very well um, as I went to school.
Hmm.
So it was a very interesting experience.
And now you're out of school. You're about to start your your employment and become
Mm-hmm.
a coach and not know it. So you're there with your clients and you're learning all your body mechanics and all the other things so that you won't lose your mind as you are exchanging energy, because all of that is just manipulation of energy. As you begin to live that lifestyle, bring into your space meditation, the all of the mindset that comes within that space, if you will, internally, and what was happening to you as far as an
Well,
individual.
I have to tell you, at 26 years ago, massage therapy was not as popular as it is today.
Yeah.
And I was caught when I said to my parents, I was like afraid to tell them I'm going to go to massage school because it was so weird and
Yeah.
so different. You know, I'm coming home with tattoos, I'm meditating. My poor father's like, what is going on with you? And I said to him, now I want to go to massage school. He goes, I don't want to know. I just don't want to know. I had gone a couple years before that. I visited their home in Florida. They
Yeah.
had a summer home. And I went down there and I'm on the beach laying, and in my earphones I hear Bermuda. 3 nights, 4 days, $150. It was really cheap. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go. And I booked the trip. I went to a travel agent, booked the trip. I could get in the country with my driver's license, but I had to have my birth certificate to get out of the country.
Yeah.
I called my mother from Florida. Mom, you have to Federal Express my birth certificate to the Bahamas. She goes, hold on a minute. I'm going to put your father on the phone. He says to me, I'm like, Dad, I'm going to the Bahamas. Can you Federal Express my birth certificate to me? He goes, can you not just stay put? I said to him, no, Dad, I'm going to the Bahamas. He just didn't, my poor father didn't stand a chance with me. So when I said I'm going to massage school, he's like, I don't want to know.
Yeah.
Just go. They really had a hard time with it. So I come back to New York, open up my practice, and I start
Yeah.
massaging. And now I'm learning, I had done a lot of work ahead of time on my, spiritual beliefs, life, and now I could incorporate it with my people, my clientele. And that's where I really realized. I had one guy say to me one time, this is the only place I can come and have an hour of
Yeah.
peace where I can truly be myself. And I said, and that was like ding, ding, ding in my
Yeah.
head, like, Anne, you're providing a sacred space for people. Please honor
Mm-hmm.
that and don't take
Yeah.
advantage. So that statement, it stuck with me. And I really do that to this day, that when people walk in my space, it's an honor
Yeah.
and it's sacred, and what they tell me and what we share is just that.
Yeah.
And people don't have a place to go and be their authentic selves, unfortunately.
Not in this society,
So
and
right, and I was able to provide that. But I was called, my family would call me weird, you're
yeah.
strange, oh, that's my aunt, she's the weird one. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I come home with the tattoos. My father's like, what are you doing now? He just, and I remember a few months before he died, I felt so bad for my father. We were at another cousin's funeral, and him and I were in the back of the funeral home. And he says to me, do you think you'd get married again? I said, Dad, I'm open to the idea I'd get married again. I says, but just not right now. I says, look, I'm really good. I have my business. I'm having fun. I'm supporting myself. I says, I'm really good. And I think that gave him relief, because he was so old
Yeah.
fashioned, where
Yeah.
the man takes care of the woman,
Yeah.
that's how he was, that he just wanted that for his daughters. And I was the only one
Yeah.
unattached
Yeah.
at that time. And it was really hard, but I could see the peace of mind he had when I said that to him, that I'm good, Dad. I really am.
That is awesome gift to give to your dad, because as parents, you know how they tend to worry or be concerned. So here, this woman is, as I mentioned to you earlier, that invisible fence that they try to keep us in the other camp, if you will, is normal. You have to be normal, and those outside of the normal fence, they label, the weird anti,
Label.
the this and that, because you're not conforming to them and their belief. And so anything outside is weird, abnormal, if you will. But for me,
Yeah.
I think those that are not in that other fence with 90%, I think we are the normal ones. I think they're the abnormal ones, because it's abnormal not to know who you are and die that way. I think it's more
Yeah.
normal to get to know who you are personally as an individual on this planet, you know, as to you were offered life. Why? What can I learn about me? What is my contribution while I'm here? There's some deep questions that each and every one of us ought to ask, and take the time to get the answers, because it will open your life and open your mind to some powerful stuff. So here you are this single woman, get your own stuff, you got your business, you got the awakening as to the place of honor, and your practice is a safe place by which one can come and be. How did you move now and from massage therapist, um, heading towards the sex aspect of your movement?
Wow. I had to, because I mentioned earlier my sex life was so shitty. I was like, I am not going to get into another relationship and not understand the physiological side of
Yeah.
myself. And I learned it was a lot of trial and error. I had a lot of fun. I'm going to tell you, I had a lot of fun. I experimented my 40s. You know, I enter therapy in my 40s, and I think therapy is for the courageous
Yeah.
person. So in my 40s now, I'm having a good time. You know, I'm drinking, I'm whoring, and I said to my therapist, I said to her, "What is going on? I'm a little concerned." You know, she says, "Do you know? Do you know what's happening?" I said, "Nope. What's happening?" She says to me, "You're going through your teenage rebellion
Yeah.
years." She says, "You were never allowed to do that." She says, "You're doing it in your 40s." And I said to her, "Oh, this is great." It was so much fun. So because you can't skip ages of development.
Yeah.
You can't skip stages of development. They're going to come back and get you. So that's what happened. That's what my 40s were about. And then it was like, okay, I'm done with this. And here I'm now into my 50s.
Yeah.
And in my 50s, I had it. I had my own home, a car, a thriving business, but I was still unfulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
And I read the book, Eat, Pray, Love, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this. I up and sold everything.
Yeah.
I traveled for 2 years extensively. Oh my God, I recommend, please travel.
Yeah.
Please, 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 please travel.
I recommend it.
Outside of this country.
I recommend it highly.
Outside of this country. When you can't speak the language, when you will understand when people are in this country and they cannot speak the language, when you're in another country and you cannot speak the language and you feel so helpless and people come and help you, you are so grateful.
Yeah.
When they apologize, they don't speak good English. I'm like, oh, no, I'm in your country. Do not apologize to me. It was such a growing experience. You know, I was in India for 7 weeks. I was in Brazil for 9 months. I was in Europe for many months. I have a niece in England I would come in and out of. It was a phenomenal experience.
Yeah.
So then I come back, it's my late 50s. I'm like, what am I going to do now? You know, reopen my practice. And here we are again. And then COVID hits.
Yeah.
And that's when I decide to become a love coach and a sex coach. Yeah. I went back to school, 330 hours. I spent getting educated. And here I am. Here I am now talking. You know, I'm now in my 60s and I talk a lot about perimenopause and menopause, yeah, how it affects your sexuality. Because it does. It's such an intense phase for women. And we don't talk about it enough. But I think within the next 5 years, you're going to see the big resurgence about educating the public about this process for women, because menopause literally changes your brain chemistry. Yeah. Like you feel you're losing your mind because it's changing your brain chemistry. So when women know this, that this is actually happening, you can seek solutions to help you through the process. When you have no sex drive, you can understand why what's happening in the process. And you can come out, you can absolutely thrive during it, after it. You're just changed. Yeah. You're just changed, and it's for the better.
When you had mentioned it briefly about getting a therapist. When you got that therapist, and you began to excavate you from the conversations that you were having with that therapist, what were some of those things that you began to discover about you? What were some of those beliefs that you had? What were some of those traumas that you discovered? And how did you begin to incorporate tools to help you to move through them? Because a lot of people, we discover much when we begin to have those conversations with a therapist and with a coach. And we have to deal with the discoveries that we unearth. How did you, what did you discover? And how did you move yourself through it?
The process is slow. It is not an overnight transition. It's layer after layer after layer. My therapist, I'm very lucky. I have the same therapist I visit occasionally now when I can't figure something out, but for 2 years, I went every week because there was just so much
Yeah,
there to be excavated and to understand all the way back from childhood why I acted like I act. And I still am discovering. So it's a painful and liberating
yeah,
process. And you have to recognize you're not perfect. Your parents certainly are not perfect. They come with their own trauma, generational trauma that just keep passing down and down and down. I mean, and then I realized after 2 years, I said to my therapist, I'm ready.
yeah.
She goes, you're ready. That I was ready to go out and fly. And that was her philosophy. She's going to give me the tools and I'm going to go out. I'll know when it's time. And then I would come back for maintenance. And that's how it's been for many years.
What were
But
some of those tools, and that she gave you?
um, there's so many. The, the difference between being disconnected and oh my god, the word is just slipping my mind. I used to say to her when I was becoming
Yeah,
healthier and not
yeah,
codependent and realizing I said to her, I feel very like ice. I feel like she says, no, you're just setting
yeah,
boundaries. She says, these are what boundaries are. You don't know what they are because you've never experienced them. Everything was so
yeah,
enmeshed
yeah,
in my life. I was so enmeshed with people. And I had to learn, and I'm still learning how to not enmesh myself with
yeah,
people, to set clearer boundaries. And I also have food is my go-to, is my
yeah,
soothing. That's the one thing my mother would soothe herself was
yeah,
food. And I learned, and I still struggle with that today, with
yeah,
food. A year ago, I stopped drinking a year ago, and it was not my body didn't the process of menopause, my body didn't want any of that
hmm,
anymore. And I was like, okay. And I just no rhyme or reason. It was like fabulous. I'm like, okay, I have no desire to have alcohol.
yeah,
And I was the party girl. I was like the fun one,
yeah,
So all these, as you start to really get in touch with yourself, you realize all what does no longer serve
yeah.
you.
So let me walk with me through this, because as a woman, I'm sure that is a major adjustment coming from the vantage point of a woman, and I am not that. And that is why I'm asking this question. As a woman, and I pardon the expression, that was drinking and a whoring, when you started to transition, and towards menopause, and menopause brings that drastic change, even in your mind and physical aspect. How did you transition to that? Um, did you feel less than? How did you manage that transition? Because maybe a lot of women may come down on themselves or whatever. Again, because I am not on that vantage point. Could you speak to that as a woman?
One, I got tired of my own behavior. The definition of
Yeah,
insanity, keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. I got tired of it. I was just like, this isn't serving
yeah,
me. And I was afraid to let it go, some of
yeah,
it, because I didn't know what would replace it. Um, but I took the leap of faith. Through my perimenopause, it started at 47 for me. I kind of was okay, except for hot flashes. I kind of sailed through
hmm,
perimenopause. I was, you know, And I was okay. I was highly sexual through there. But what hit for me was a year ago was after it was menopause, where I was like, I don't feel like
Yeah.
myself. I lost that juiciness about myself, that vibrance. Um, I didn't know who I was. I felt like I was literally losing my
Hmm.
mind with anxiety and depression. I'm like, what is happening to me? It was just so
Yeah.
drastic.
Yeah.
It was just so drastic of a change. And that's when I started to really start doing a lot of research and understanding what was happening for me, that I had basically all the estrogen had left my
Hmm.
body. And I'm like, oh, and I said to my doctor, I feel like all the estrogen has left my body. Like I'm old all of a sudden. My body aches and pains. I hurt. I'm depressed. She says to me, well, that's what happens. That's part of the process. And I said to her, doctor, that's not true. That's not true. So I had to take it upon myself to educate
Yeah.
myself. What about hormone replacement therapy? Why are we not talking about this? I'm not sleeping. Where's my sleep? And I was the best sleeper. It was like overnight I stopped
Yeah.
sleeping. If you're not sleeping, it is
Yeah.
terrible. It is
Yeah.
a terrible phase. Nutrition, hormone. So, but in July, this year has been health wise. July, end of May, I had a leg
Hmm.
injury. And I said to my sister, oh, it was Memorial Day. I said, I can't help. She was having a gathering. I can't help. I got to put my leg up. She looked at it and it was red and swollen. She goes, you better go have that looked at. That's not
Yeah.
normal. Okay. Long story short, I had a blood clot.
Wow.
I actually had two. And I was diagnosed with a hereditary blood clotting disorder
Wow.
in July. And I'm like, you're kidding me, right? Where is this coming from? I've had it my whole life and it's activated now. Why
Yeah.
now? Then I hurt my knee. It was just a horrendous time this year. But I finally fought. I'm on hormone replacement
Yeah.
therapy. I educated myself. I fought with my doctors, but I found a gynecologist that would
Yeah.
write the script for hormone replacement therapy. I'm feeling much better. My knee has been rehabbed. I'm actually back to almost my normal activity. And but it was a very isolated
Yeah.
year for me. This is where I had to go. I'm like, okay, so things are very different for me. I'm starting, I want to retire from massage and I'm pushing, really focusing on my sex and love coaching to really make the transition. And I'm going through all these health
Yeah.
issues. So I had a limited amount of energy and I could really only work and rest.
Yeah.
That's all my body would allow. And now that I'm feeling better and I've moving forward, I I realized I had lost some of my
Yeah.
gratitude. I had lost I just was not grateful. And I'm like, where is this? What happened to
Yeah.
Anne? Where
Yeah.
did Anne go? So I started in my business a pleasure and gratitude
Hmm.
challenge. And I did it basically for myself so that I could have myself accountable with my
Yeah.
clients. So that's what I'm doing now. And it's really, between all the, other aspects that I'm doing in my life. And this is really starting to
Yeah.
snowball. It's rolling in a really nice direction again for me, where I'm really starting to feel like
Yeah.
myself, but different.
Speak and to those, and I know you just did, but I want you to singularly focus on it for a moment because there's a lot of women that are in this space. There's a transition. I think it's about 1 million or two people that are turning 65, and there's a high percentage of those that are women within that population that will be going through that transition. And you mentioned a couple of things again at a at 65 and dealing with depression and the unknown when it comes to this aspect of walking into menopausal part of your life. What is that singular advice or advices that you would give to that individual? And I love the fact that you said to yourself, you need to be grateful within it. What is a singular advice would you give to someone that is there right now and is be just overwhelmed, if you will, and at what's happening to them?
I think you have to acknowledge where you are, and it's normal. Accept it. It's okay. Don't try to fight it. Just one, accept where you are, because things can't change unless you accept where you are. And really, feel what you're feeling, and then start to become your own advocate. How do you want to see yourself? Because this process starts at age 30, as young as
Yeah,
35. Women will spend a third of their life in menopause. So, how do you want to live the rest of your life? And that's what I asked myself. How do I want to live the rest of my life? I did not want to walk around feeling aches and pains. I did not want to feel like I was an 80-year-old person. So, I really dug deep. I want to be a sexual thriving person. How am I gonna match all of these things together? And it was not, again, an overnight process. It's trial and error, what works. And it's nutrition, it's exercise, it's sleep, it's hormone replacement therapy, and it's supplemental. And you have to find, within those realms, you have to find what works for you.
that's
You have to apply, and it's trial and error, and that's what I've been doing this year, is trial and error. What is going to make me feel whole? But I had to get my mind back in the game. In order to do that, I had to get some assistance with some of those areas. The alcohol was not my friend. My nutrition was not my friend, because for me, the my favorite foods of sugar and all of that would instantly make me depressed, more
yeah,
depressed. So I had to choose. If I'm going to eat this typical food, it's going to aid in helping me feel more depressed. Do I want to do that? No, I don't want to do that. So I've gotten down to the point where, when it comes to food, if I have this, I know what the results are going to be. Do I want to do
yeah,
it? No, I don't. And that's a hard, it's an easier call for me, but in the beginning it was really hard. Like, but I want to eat that
yeah,
food. It's my soothe, it's my comfort, it's my lover, and it really wasn't. It was just blocking me from getting where I wanted to go. So acknowledge where you are, and then start to look to the experts, do your research. I mean, I have a whole free menopause guide on my website to get you started, because I understand how we've been led a lot of misinformation about hormone replacement therapy for women. There was a study that came out in 2002, the Women's Health
yeah,
Initiative, and basically it's been debunked, and it says hormone replacement therapy causes breast cancer. It does not. And the study was all wrong. And we've been, for 20 years now, women have suffered from this because our hormones were taken away from us. So, and before this, the hormone replacement therapy was number one or number four prescriptions written in the United States.
wow. We're
Yeah.
we're going to provide
So
all of
it's
that, and we're going to provide those links so that they can have
okay.
access to you, because it is. And Anne had mentioned it, that it will be growing. It will be getting a larger. Um, uh, I guess more people getting into that, because, as again I said, I know it's somewhere about a million or 2 million people that are hitting that 65
Mm-hmm.
in retirement. And as I mentioned, there's a great amount of a percentage that are women there that will be dealing with this. I know
Yes.
sister, my sister she was in her 20s when she had her menopause. So
She young.
she was young, and we saw what that did to her. At that time, there was not anything information for such a young person going through
Right.
menopause, and she
Mm-hmm.
had a tough journey walking that path. But yeah, I know I've seen some of that with my eyes with my sister. And so we are going to provide all of these things for you guys to have access to Anne, because she has some information that is able to help you and assist you to walk you through the different minefields that you will be
Yeah.
within as you're navigating through that space. So here you are.
And
Go ahead, Anne.
and all of my information is from
Yeah.
doctors. It's not my personal opinion. Thank God we have some Gen Xer doctors that are on this, and I've basically taken a lot of their information and compiled
Mm-hmm.
it so that you have a starting place, so you don't have to do what I had to
Yeah.
do to get where you want to go.
So here you are now. You're in your, I'm not going to say, and
I'm
I'm gonna let
62.
you
I'm
say it. I'm gonna
62.
let you say it. That's I'm gonna respect your space and let you say it. So you are here and you have transitioned to the sexual part of that life now. How do you feel being there? You are no longer whoring. I love that.
No.
You are in a space where you are you and you are whole. How does it feel and to be whole and dealing and educating others as to their sexuality in this space? How does it make you feel as a servant being there, bringing that information to others?
It's gratifying that I can help others have what they
Yeah,
want, and with their sex life, their relationships. But I find for me, I have to walk my talk,
yeah,
to be authentic. People know, so I always walk my talk, and that makes me a better
yeah.
practitioner. I believe, but it really is fulfilling that you can help people in this way. And when they email you and say thank you for all you do, I'm like, oh, isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? So yeah, it's you give and you get.
Yeah.
It's the cycle. It's just the cycle.
It's a great place to be, isn't it? It's a great place to live.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell
Yes.
people the servant lifestyle is just beautiful stuff. You need to get here. I invite people all the time, hurry up and become a servant. There is nothing like it. But it's going to cost you something. It's going to cost you much because you're going to have to go through your own personal journey and you're going to have to come out, and
Mm-hmm.
then you will be able to serve because you will become a lover of self first. And when you love yourself, forgive yourself, empathetic with yourself, patient with yourself, you will be patient with others because you know how of a pain in the ass you were, and how you were able to forgive you, and you will be able to forgive someone else when they stand before you, and you will bow and be able to honor them, to give them the space to become as you were given that space to become. One of my favorite phrase that I say, people ask me, what are you doing, Ken? I would tell them, and I am becoming. I love that.
It is. It's really good.
And
It's
so I welcome you guys, those that are listening to this wonderful conversation. We want to invite you to become. Start your journey. Those that haven't begun the journey of self-development, it is a beautiful journey. It is
Mm.
one that is priceless. It is one that will be tough. There's one that will be rewarding. It is all in all. It is messy. It's beautiful, and it will carry you through to the end of your days until you walk into that next space, that next development, arena of development that you will continue in. So I want to thank you guys for coming and listening to Ann and I. We're going to provide everything for you to get access to her. I invite you to go into her space, become acquainted with her. I always tell people, become a disciple. Disciple are those that are coming to get discipline. And when you come to
Yeah.
get discipline, you will become a changer of the world. There was this gentleman by the name of Jesus Christ. He had 12, and look what they did. So become a disciple, become disciplined in your life as you walk through your journey, because you will change others. Thank you so much, Anne, for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Thank you for having me, Ken. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.